Hello and welcome to this series on Godot. I want to talk about the community poll that's done by the Godot organization every year, and it gathers feedback from the community to see how people are using Godot and what features they do and don't like, that kind of stuff. My name is Asher Rivello. I'm a game dev with over 20 years of experience making games. In the last decade or so, I've focused on Unity. I'm also playing with lots of other game engines, and I love Godot, playing with it pretty much all this year. My career experience includes shipping game titles for all sorts of different platforms, mobile, console, PC, Steam, as well as creating educational content around game dev. I've got a lot of educational material about Godot, including some custom add-ons that you can get for free, and you can find everything updated here on this link. So check out the Godot portfolio to see articles, repos, tips, and more. So I'm relatively new to Godot. I've put in a couple hundred hours, which pales in comparison to the time I've spent with Unity, for example. I'm really enjoying what I've got going on so far, and I'm particularly leaning into a C# development path within Godot. For a quick recap, this is the GodotEngine.org site, and this is a free open source game engine, which is tremendously popular. Many refer to it as the third engine for indie devs, Unreal and Unity being other popular options. Now, I'm pretty new to the community, but apparently every year Godot does a community poll. And we're also going to take a look at the series in the next one for 2024. But let's go through last year's results, and I'm looking at this for the first time with you. And I'm just going to give some thoughts as I go here. I don't even know what we're going to discover. So the age group of respondents to the poll, we see a majority are 18 to 25 and 26 to 35. Okay? Makes sense? We've got a lot of younger students and hobbyists and indies using Godot. I would imagine that Unity's audience would be a bit older, and Unreal perhaps even older than that. But all of them, follow general software and game dev trends. Gender here, majority men. Where do respondents live? Let's take a look at this. So we've got a lot of European respondents. I'm from the US, but I live abroad, and I can see quite a lot in North and Central America, which would be my area. Okay. Generally follows tech trends for population and demographics. Now, as of 2023, previous experience using Godot, what did they use? Let's see, Unity, definitely the clear option. I'm kind of surprised to see Game Maker so high up there, but I guess we got a lot of indies, a lot of students given that age breakdown, and we do see Unreal there. So I guess Unreal and Unity would be what I would guess would be the top two answers. But we see other third party, not sure, could be some HTML5 stuff. When did you first hear of Godot? Okay, wow, very even split across these different years. I probably heard of Godot in 15 or 16 or 17, but at that time it was one of 30 different game engines. It's really been, I would say for me, in the last 2 years, probably when Godot 4.0 released, which I guess was 2023, it really got on my map and I started to play around with it. Only in this calendar year have I really started investing more time. Okay, and when did you start? We got a lot starting in 2020. Let's see, we got some more options here. Weeks ago, 2021. Yeah, so I guess 2021 is where a lot of people started. Pandemic time. So what's the experience level so far? Like, what have you done with Godot? This blue slice here is publish one or more serious projects. That is what I'm really interested to see level up, because I think there's a few different things that are preventing Godot's growth. Okay, one of it is there's just an entrenched audience that's already using other technology, already got skills in those other areas, and there's always a cost from switching from one tech to another. Let's say from Unity to Godot, or from Unreal to Godot. But when you actually do that effort and are part of a project that finishes, seeing that 5.5% here have published a serious project, that's quite cool to see. It's a low number, but it's quite cool to see people are doing that, and I would hope that number goes up every year. And I guess speaking to that, we see how do you primarily work with Godot. The majority is hobbyist side job. So hobbyist, I would say, is not professional, not looking to make money or not currently make money. Side job would be peppering in a bit of I would guess, paid work on top of that. Full-time indie, we do see a lot of indies using Godot. It is a powerful, capable tool, and it's completely free, which I think is an especially awesome feature, and that it's open source so that teams can add features that they want. If the team isn't responsive enough to be adding, fixing a bug, let's say, you can always fix it yourself. Also cool to see a little sliver here for education and research. I think education is a particularly cool area for Godot. I was really happy to see that while you generally use the desktop editor when you're using Godot, you can also run it in the browser, which makes it even more accessible for teaching simple lessons. So what's been the main influence? Okay, we see a lot of people here just doing their own research, and some have had people recommend it, but the majority doing your own research, which I would say for me as well. I'm just playing with it, enjoying it, comparing its features, getting a feel for the workflow. And how are people using Godot? Well, we see from a primary standpoint that the 2D game dev seems to be where it's leaning in strengths. Not many people are using it for teaching, I think just because this audience doesn't do a lot of teaching. But as I mentioned, I think Godot is a cool platform for teaching. I hadn't really thought of this distinction before. Certainly 2D versus 3D seem to be the two major categories in this question, but thinking of a GUI-based app or game, which I guess is, just leaning on how important is UI for the game, and knowing that many games don't necessarily need 2D sprites running around or 3D models running around. They could just have a UI-driven game. Now, there's not too many popular games like that I can think of, at least not from the games that I play, but there are lots of them. A very simplistic example would be to say like a trivia game or something, but there's tons of games that are built around UI. What describes your skill set? Let's see. Again, mostly 2D, which I think makes sense. Not just because Godot does 2D, it also does 3D, but because a lot of indies tend to use 2D. You get that immediacy of gameplay. I think the pipeline for creating assets is easier in 2D in a lot of cases. Are you using Godot for VR? We've got some that are. Again, skip if you don't use Godot. So they don't have a no, I'm not, because I'm sure the majority option here would be people are not using it for Godot, using Godot for VR rather. Interesting, desktops more than mobile. Okay, fair enough. No surprises here, really. What game genres are people using? Let's take a look at this together. I'm thinking of what 2D examples we've got here. So, of course, platforming is a hugely popular, relevant game that's selling these days, and it's in 2D. Roguelikes as well. Action adventure is quite popular as well. A Metroidvania, which is also a platforming. Do I see anything for that UI base? So visual novel, point and click, interactive fiction, some of those would fit into that GUI or UI relevant one we saw before. As with trivia, possibly puzzle, depending on the types of puzzles. What's your main revenue source? That's an interesting one. itch.io is quite high up on there. Steam as well. Now, something of note is that Godot does not proclaim to export to consoles. I think you can do it with some third-party help, but that's why we see itch, Steam, and the mobiles, and we don't really see Xbox, PlayStation, etc. listed here. But the takeaway here, which is not a surprise, is the main respondents here are not earning income. Again, because we saw that they are hobbyists. And for those people that are making money, how are they making money? So direct sale seems to be the number one. In-app purchases, which would be especially relevant for mobile dev. Yeah, work for hire and education. So for me, for example, as a game dev and a game dev educator, I would be work for hire, employment, and education on this chart. I don't launch my own indie titles. Okay, do you use or plan to use multiplayer? Now, I am very shocked by this statistic that says the majority of people here are a yes. I think people are hopeful. I think why I'm shocked is if you'd said, of all the hobby projects completed, how many of them are multiplayer? And I think it would be a tiny fraction. But everyone's excited about multiplayer, and everyone thinks they want to add that into their Godot. I'm interested to play around with Godot's multiplayer. I haven't yet. In the Unity world, I've done 4 or 5 different frameworks, including Unity's first-party netcode for game objects. But I'm interested to see what the ecosystem is available for Godot. Okay, do you program in a team? This is interesting marketing for my education and as I offer add-ons in the Godot world to see that the majority are single developers. So when I champion best practices and also frameworks and unit testing, one of the special value adds is as your project scales up and your team scales up, you really see benefits. Now, you still see benefits in best practices and solid architecture as an individual. You certainly do. But when you get up to teams of 5 or 10, having best practices really locked down on your team is critical. Do you use version control? Okay, so version control is a critical, essential part of software development. The fact that 27% are saying no just speaks to the fact that this is a hobbyist, student, beginner audience. Anyone who's answering no here has never shipped a title. Which version control system? Okay, Git. Yeah, obviously. LFS is Git plus the ability to store larger files. So if you've got big assets or something like that, but that's basically Git as well. So 99% here is Git, which is what I prefer to use as well. Primary development platform, let's see here. Windows, Mac, desktop Linux. There's that Godot web that I mentioned, which is super cool. Also, it runs on phones, Godot Android. 27% is desktop Linux? I cannot possibly believe that. I don't even know how to understand that. As my mind goes toward indie devs and students, are they on Linux? I mean, I think of Linux something more for veteran developers of certain types of software, but I don't know. But that's interesting for me to see. It's in my blind spot. What types of hardware to use? Okay, desktop, notebook. Okay, I guess that's laptop. Cool. A real benefit of Godot is that it runs on a wide variety of machines. I think between the big 3 engines, Unreal requires the most to be a developer. You need to have the nicest machine just to run it smoothly. Then Unity is demanding as well. And then Godot, as you can see, it even runs on, we saw in the last one, Android. You can run it on Android or the web, which is fantastic. It's awesome to help democratize people around the world who don't all have the latest hardware be able to play their games and develop their games. What types of GPU? Okay, let's see. The majority are on a low to medium end dedicated GPU or 5-year-old GPU. So how many people are developing with Godot with a computer that's 5 years old or more? Is half of them. Okay, so again, it's nice that Godot works well for them. Are you able to use ray tracing? Well, I would guess no. Ray tracing is a pretty new technology, so people with a computer 5 years old probably don't. Okay, we are like halfway through here. We're gonna take a pause for me to drink some water. When did you buy your hardware? Okay, some years ago for a lot of people. What's your main export platforms? Okay, this is interesting. We saw before like the PC Steam when I was talking about console development. So the majority making for Windows. Desktop Linux, again, super popular. I'm shocked. HTML5, cool. I'm really excited to see that export platform. Which version of Godot do you use? Okay, let's see how many we got. Red and blue. Okay, so 75% are on Godot 4. Oh, this was last year as well. So that's awesome. Now we're up to, I think 4.3 is going to come out soon around the time of this video. Have you migrated to 4? Okay. How did you get Godot? Oh, you can get it from Steam. That's interesting. Mostly from the website that I showed, which is how I got it. Okay, this is cool to see. So this is last year. What language are people using? GD script. Okay. Now, I thought that the C# was done through GD extension, but I guess not. Oh no, I guess because there's 2 binaries that you can get for Windows. There's 4.2 and 4.2 with mono, and I guess that second one includes it without GD extensions. Do you use libraries? The majority is a no. I'm not sure what library means here. So this is not add-on or plugin. Okay, what are people using for modules? Godot Steam, Dialogic, Godot Voxel. Okay, these are just as free people writing in. You don't know how popular each of these options are. What communities are people on? Okay, this is cool to see. Do you contribute to Godot's open source? Do not contribute, only open issues. I think that's cool. 15% of the audience last year is adding issues, which is making a official recommendation to the code base. Here's a bug I found. Here's a feature I would like. Do you contribute to the documentation or translation? The majority no. That's what I would expect. I would expect commercial consumers of a product not to be co-developing the product. But because Godot is open source, it's nice to see that people are contributing at least a little bit. Do you contribute to community support? I'm not sure what that means. So do you help other people? But is that on their official forums or anywhere? Cool. Do you work at a studio, and how aware of your peers are? Okay, so the majority do not work at a studio, which was a theme we've seen here. And we've got pretty even slivers of, yeah, maybe they've heard it, maybe they don't. Are you using the asset library? Okay, this is interesting. Sometimes, no, never, yeah. So I'm particularly interested in the asset library, which when you open the Godot editor is a way to get some community-driven tools to bring in. The word add-on and the word plugin seems to be used interchangeably. And then we've got asset library. So I guess add-on and plugin is more like the code type of thing you could get, but you could also get sprites, 3D models, whatever. But I'm particularly interested because I have some plugins that are out there, and I'm curious how many people are using them. There's some problems from my perspective, with the way the asset library is organized. One of the core one is that you can't have one asset, as they call it here, one asset depend on another asset. And until that really works nicely, the amount of stuff that you could really get to collaborate together in the plugin space is pretty limited. Okay, would you pay for commercial assets if they were available? I'm interested in this. So I think I'm pretty new to the asset library, but I'm pretty sure you cannot charge any money through the asset library itself. Not that there's a rule about that. It just doesn't have functionality to do that. But if we compare it to the Unity Asset Store, you can charge money or have free assets. Unity takes a cut of that, and then your end users have a license relationship where you can download it and use it for one person or for the whole team or whatever, depending on the license that the creator has set up. So I would be interested in a pipeline for paid assets. That would be cool. Would you offer assets commercially if it was available? Okay, let's look at this. How satisfied are you? I'm going to think about good, the good and the great. So the pace of development, people seem to be happy. The community, the image of Godot, the professionalism, the accessibility. I mean, people are pretty pleased across the board. Now, this type of polling result here doesn't really tell us anything within a given category. But if we saw one of these categories was decidedly lower than the rest, it might help us understand something. But they're all pretty high. Okay, that's cool. How comfortable are you with the following funding sources? Okay. Individual contributors, people love that. Do people want companies to give money? Okay, less than individuals. Company sponsors, government subsidies, official merchandise. A lot of people are happy with official merchandise and asset store. Now, again, I'm pretty sure the asset store does not take a cut, but this question is, would you be okay with that? So official merchandise and individuals seem to be the most popular there. Each of the following is a potential area of growth. How comfortable are you with donations spent on this behalf? Okay, so where do you want Godot's money to go? I'm surprised they didn't ask first, have you given money? Because I don't, if there was that, I didn't think about that question already, but I'm surprised. And I would think the majority has not given money. I did. I gave money last year. So the asset store, the engine, what is this one? Engine development. Okay, most people want engine development. Now that makes sense. Even within engine development, you could split that up into like new features, bugs, etc. How do you feel about the Godot Foundation forming strategic partners with companies in the ecosystem? So a few of these questions here have hinted at this, and I'm wondering what we're getting at here. So the majority say, sure, take some corporate money, but be selective about it. So I'm thinking, for example, what if Microsoft became the single biggest donor to Godot? What would that mean to the community? Would that smell like a private company is going to take it over? Now, Microsoft has a long relationship, and I'm just giving that as one example. They have a long history of establishing relationships with open source projects around different technologies. I think that there's a lot of ways you could look at that. It's a philanthropic effort. It is also a way for them to help direct and to communicate, for them to bring developers over to their own technologies. Interesting. So that's the end of the poll. I think there were some surprises along the way for me. It was really cool for me to see, and I'm interested to compare 2023's results that we're seeing here with 2024 in the future. I thought it was super cool to take a look at it. I wasn't involved in the community when this poll went out, but I am now, and I would love to contribute to the 2024 poll results and see how they compare. I'm interested to see if there's different questions that are asked this year that weren't asked in the poll we just saw, and how when we get the results back, how the community's answers over time. Now, of the ones that I'm most interested in, I want to see have more than 5% of people used Godot to ship a commercial project since last year. Last year, I think it was 5.5. That's probably the thing that I think is most interesting as a sign that this is being used to create money in the market, and thus that money can come back. I'm super excited that students and hobbyists are using Godot and finding an audience there, but until there's more money being tied to how Godot is being used commercially, I think it won't create that virtuous cycle where the community helps Godot and Godot helps the community, and that cycle continues. So thanks for following along with me. I'm available for remote contract hire. While typically I do Unity dev, and that's been my focus the last 10 years, I'm super excited to do projects within Godot as well. Again, I've mentioned I've done a few hundred hours already. I've shipped some Godot assets and have them available for doing best practices. I've got a core library available. I'll put links to this below. I've got a Mingleton framework for doing singletons without any auto load, which is super cool, and an MVC framework. So check it out. Thanks.